Thanks for downloading this episode of Cork Talk with me, Tim Atkin. A weekly conversation with some of the most famous people in the world of wine.
This podcast is brought to you in partnership with Noma Cork by Vinventions. Driven by a commitment to innovation, the new plant-based Noma Cork Green Line offers significant improvements in wine closure performance. Thanks to a rigorous oxygen ingress rate, you can decide which cork is best for your wine, whether it's for young and fresh wines or for those with ageing potential.
Yves Cuilleron took over his family's estate in Condrieu and Saint Joseph in his early 20s. The space of just 3 decades has turned it into one of France's star names. Our fascinating conversation covered his love of Viognier, the difference between the 2 banks of the Rhône River, clones of Syrah, including Serine, Yves' California joint venture, and his ongoing experiments with historic grapes such as Durif and Dureza. Hello, Yves. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you.
How are you? You're sounding very happy. You finished the harvest today, haven't you?
Yes, we finished harvest, so it's a great moment. It's the last day, and the harvest we have a very good weather, so it was not too stressed this year.
Oh, that's good to hear. And where are you speaking to us from? You're in the Rhône, obviously, because you've just finished the harvest. Are you in the winery or are you at home?
No, I leave the winery. I am at home now, yes.
Okay. So tonight is going to be a big party, is it?
The party will be in some days.
Okay, and I know you like partying. Listen, lots of stuff I want to talk to you about. I mean, I love the styles of your wines, both white and red. Let's just begin a little bit of family history, because you're the 3rd generation a vigneron winemaker, is that correct?
Yes, I said it's the 3rd generation because it's my grandfather, Claude Cuilleron, who began to bottle wine during the 40s. 1947 exactly. Yeah. And after it was my uncle in 1960, Antoine Cuilleron, and me, I make my first harvest in 1987.
Okay, and were you brought up around wine? I mean, did you go to the cellar and work with your uncle or your grandfather?
Yes, it was not my father who was the winemaker. It was my uncle. Yeah. But my family every year for the harvest there is an excitation about and I was outside to see the preparation of the harvest, and since I am very young.
And did you spend time in the vineyards when you were a kid?
Yes. When I was king, I spent time in the vineyard. I spent time in the cellar and with my father. I began to drink wine very early at 10 years old.
10 years old. What did you drink when you were 10 years old? Must have been Syrah, right?
So yes, it was Syrah, but with water. 10 years old, just a small quantity in the bottom of the glass. Yes.
I think there was some time in the past in France when schools used to give kids wine at school, didn't they? I mean, watered down.
Yeah, yes. At this time, it was very different from now. Yes, there is a wine in school. Yes, before the 50s. Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, I read in Remington Norman's book, a very good book, Rhône Renaissance, that the domain when you took it over was on the verge of being sold. Yeah, in the early 1980s. Why was that?
Yes, because when my uncle have to stop to work, he don't have children interested by the family vineyard. So the family speak about selling the vineyard. And at this time, I just finished school, and I was interested by the wine, by drinking wine, and I don't really work and learn for the winemaking, but I was interested by the wine, so I decided to make an adult school to learn and follow after my uncle.
So did you have to convince your family? Did you have to persuade them to let you do it?
Yes. At the beginning, they don't believe, because I never said when I was young, I will be winemaker. I liked drinking wine, but I never said that. And when I take the decision, yes, my family was a little surprised, yes.
So what did you want to be? A chef, was it? No, or an engineer? What did you want to be?
Yes, I think engineer and to work in the mechanic, yes.
Not gastronomy, because you love gastronomy as well.
I love, yes. My father learned to me to eat good cooking, and I am very like that. Yes.
So what did you do? So you've just finished school, right? You decide that you say to the family, "I want to take over the domain."
Yes.
What did you do next?
So I have to make an adult school, and before making this adult school, I have to be intern during 1 year. And my uncle said to me to go in the Courbis family. It was a good winery in near Cornas. So I spent 1 year in Courbis family. Yes,
with Maurice Courbis. Yeah?
With Maurice Courbis in 1985.
And then you went to Burgundy to study, didn't you?
Yes, and after the year after, I spent 1 year in Mâcon.
Mâcon. Was that good? Was that interesting, studying with Burgundians?
Yes, it was. For me, it was one of my best years of my life, because it's the first time I go to school, and I was very interested by learning about winemaking, and I have a project after, so it was very good years, and I make. It was a great years, yes.
And you still have lots of Burgundian friends?
Yes. We still have some friends from this time, yes.
So then you came back to the family domain, yeah? And this is in 1986, and your first vintage was 87, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wonder, what sort of shape was the domain in those days? Were the vineyards good? I mean, you didn't have many vineyards, did you?
Yes, so the family vineyard was very small. It was only 3 hectares and half, 1 hectare of Condrieu, 2 hectares of Red Saint Joseph, and half of 1 hectare of White Saint Joseph. It was only that. And I am of the generation of the winemaker. We make the renaissance of the Northern Rhône. At this time, during the beginning of the 80s, the Northern Rhône nearly disappeared. And but there is a renaissance in this time, and there is a lot of winemaker of my generation who begin at this time during the 80s and 90s.
And what sort of condition were the vineyards in? Were the vineyards good?
Yes. At this time, it was easy yes, my family vineyard was a good vineyard. It was old vines in a beautiful place. And, also at this time, it was easy to find land, and it was not expensive. Because there is the vineyard was very small at this time. Yeah.
And did people take you seriously? You were very young, right? You were in your 20s. Did they say, "Who's this guy?"
Yes, and especially at this time, the people think too young. It's not somebody who knows about wine, so it was a little difficult for me when you are very young, and you have to prove, you have to. Now it's more easy, I think, for the new generation to beginning and. But in my time, it was more difficult.
And who helped you? Who supported you? Was it people of your age, or did some of the older people help?
So my family helped me. So my uncle, of course, he stay with me during 4 or 5 years to help me, and my father also, my other uncle, and yes, it was. I have a lot of help at this time.
And you say only 3.5 hectares, and now you've got what, 75?
Yes, now I have 75, yes.
Wow. It's unbelievable progression, isn't it?
I never believe I will have that one day, yes.
So in those days, it was just Condrieu and Saint Joseph, yeah?
Yes, I just begin with 2 appellations, Condrieu and Saint Joseph. And now I have 6 crus from the 8 we have in Northern Rhône. So it means only Châteaubriand and Hermitage.
Well, you can't have Châteaubriand because it's a monopole.
And Hermitage is difficult too.
Why? Because Hermitage is too expensive, is it now?
Yeah, it's very expensive, and everything is planted now, and it's very small, and often it's owned by the big company like Chapoutier, Delas, Jaboulet. So it's difficult to find Hermitage. Yes.
For people who don't know it, I mean, it's a very beautiful place. Tell us a bit more about the Northern Rhône Valley. Like, what are the major influences with the climate, the soil types? Is it all granite? And the 2 banks, because you've got a bit like Paris, you've got a left bank and a right bank, yeah? In
fact, the Rhône River, it's in each side of the Rhône River, it's a different kind of soil. In the right side of the Rhône River, it's a mountain from the center of France. It's a Massif Central, and it's granitic. And the left side, it's sediment from the Alps. So it's very different. The big majority of all the crues are on the Massif Central side, so on the right side, on the granitic soil. And the particularity, it's very steep. It's in a vineyard in terraces. And that it makes the big particularity of the Northern Rhône, the fact it's a big majority, it's a vineyard in terraces and granitic soil. The second particularity of the Northern Rhône, it's the climate, because we are not in a Mediterranean climate, we are in a semi-continental climate, so it's a more cool climate. It's for that in Northern Rhône, we don't have variety we have in Southern Rhône. We don't have Grenache, Mourvèdre, Cinsault. We only have Syrah for the red. And it's make a wine with a good balance in Northern Rhône because it's not too warm. And we always have a Syrah with acidity, with freshness. And so the particularity is that it's a fresh climate with the specificity of a vineyard in terraces.
And you can see those terraces both from the road, can't you? But also the train. Yes, when the train goes through the TGV, you can see them next to you.
Yeah.
No, they're stunning. So how many of the top vineyards are on the left bank? All
the appellations are on the right side. Only Hermitage and Gros Hermitage are in the left side. Okay. But Côte-Rôtie, Condrieu, Châteaubriand, Saint Joseph, Cornos, Saint-Péret are on the Massif Central side of the Rhône. Yes.
And yet Hermitage is probably the most famous vineyard, isn't it?
Yes, but Hermitage, the specificity is the same kind of soil than the right side because the Rhône River cuts the Massif Central. So you have granite in the two sides.
But you don't have granite in Gros Hermitage.
A small part of Gros Hermitage have a granite too. In the around Hermitage, you have some Gros Hermitage with granite, but the big majority it's a sediment soil from the Alps.
Interesting, yeah. So the Alps on one side and the Massif Central on the other. Very interesting. Yes. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the way you farm because you're not organic, you're not biodynamic, you're not conventional. It's sort of prêt-à-porter. I don't know what you call it exactly, but it's interesting on your website, which is great, by the way. How would you describe the way you farm?
So, I always work with, in French, we call that culture raisonnée. So it's not organic, but it's, you try to have a good reflection of what you do and to use the less treatment as possible. To work the vineyard, with, for example, I work my vineyard with a low vigor. With a low vigor, you have less disease in the vineyard. So I do, and my own call before me, used to work like that, culture raisonnée. So you don't use insecticide, only organic fertilizer. And I continue like that. But I moved 2 years ago. So now I moved to be organic. So I am in the second years of organic. Yes.
So you're converting to organic, are you?
Yes, I am in the second years of converting. Yes.
Okay. And would you ever go biodynamic or not?
No, because I don't understand everything in biodynamic.
Who does? It's interesting that when you took over the domain, you were it was best known for Condrieu, wasn't it?
Yes, because my own call before me was at this time one of the bigger producer of Condrieu, so our Condrieu was selling in the top restaurant in Rhône, in La Pyramide and in Beau Rivage. It was, and my own call sell his Condrieu to the beautiful restaurant. And when I begin, there is not a lot of production of Condrieu. So we were very famous for Condrieu.
Interesting. I mean, Viognier is not an easy grape to grow, is it, or to make? But I love yours. They're fantastic. Just tell us what's the secret of making good Viognier in terms of things like alcohol and acidity. How do you get balance right in Viognier?
Yes, me, I said Viognier, it's a easy and difficult variety. It's easy because it's an aromatic variety. So when you make a wine with aromatic variety, it's more easy to have flavor, to have expression. But it's difficult because it's difficult to keep a balance with Viognier. What is important, it's to preserve the acidity, not too rich. Viognier can be a little heavy, can be with not enough acidity, too much alcohol. So it's for that it's difficult. So you have to find the way to have the perfect balance, to have the good expression of Viognier.
Do you pick early? You don't acidify, do you?
No, it's not. The solution is not to pick early. Sometimes when we said, oh, there is not enough acidity, but for me, it's very important to have the real ripeness in the grapes. And if you pick early, you are green, and it's make a wine without body, without complexity, and it's very so the solution is not to pick early, it's to pick at the right time. So it's depend of the vintage, it depend of the yield, of a lot of things. But yes, to find the balance between the ripeness and the balance, yes.
And does it age well, Condrieu?
Yes, I always say that the Condrieu can age very well because it's wine making with low yield in the terraces, in granitic soil, and the vinification is making slowly in barrels. And so for me, it's really a wine with a good potential of aging. And when I sell my wine to my customers, I always say Viognier is very aromatic young. If you drink it in the 3-5 years, it's varietal aromas of the Viognier with violet, apricot, peach. But you can also keep the bottles and drink after 10 years.
Okay.
It's another balance, another wine. But very interesting too. And I still have some bottle from my beginning, from the 80s,
from 87,
90s.
Yeah.
Yes. And if the cork is good, but you can age very well. Yes.
Good. 1996, I think, was when I first met you. You'd created Les Vins de Vienne, yeah, with Pierre Gaillard, the wonderful Pierre Gaillard, and François Villard. Yeah. Just tell us what Vins de Vienne does. Is it a negociant business, and how has it evolved?
So the creation of the Vins de Vienne, at the beginning, we make this joint venture at 3. It was for replant this old vineyard of Sessuel. So this vineyard, in the history, it's a vineyard planted by the Romans, and we find in a book from Pliny that it was planted before the Côte-Rôtie, the vineyard of Sessuel, and this vineyard exists all over the time. He disappeared only at the beginning of the 20th century. And the idea we have together is to replant this vineyard and to recreate an appellation in this place.
And that's what you did, yeah?
Yes, yeah. Yes, and we are very proud of that, and we are very happy of that to make this vineyard come back, because now there is more than 20 producers who are in this place, and we certainly in 2 years now we will be appellation. So perhaps in 4-5 years we can have another cru in Northern Rhône.
Oh, fantastic! Sessuel, yeah.
Yes, Sessuel. So the Les Vins de Vienne, the first idea it was to make this wine of Sessuel.
Yeah.
But when we begin, we plant the vineyard of Sessuel, and we have to find a winery to make the wine, and because we find a place a little large, we said, and it was expensive to make investment for pressoir, for everything. So we said, we can try together to make other wine from Northern Rhône. So at the beginning, we buy grapes in Cornas, in Saint-Péret, in Saint Joseph, and we begin together to make all the cru from the Rhône Valley.
And you're still doing that as well as running your domain.
Yes. So we begin to replant the vineyard in 1996, and we we begin to buy grapes to make together wine from Northern Rhône in 1998.
Okay. And you, all this time, you were buying vineyard parcels, right? We said earlier you were at 75 hectares. You said it was much easier to buy vineyard land then, yeah? I mean, presumably it was a very good investment, because how much more expensive is the land now than it was then?
Yes, when I began, it was very, very cheap to buy land during the 80s, and now it's more and more expensive. So it's for that I developed my vineyard very rapidly during the 90s, 20s, because at this time it was more easy to find land and not too expensive. And now there is less and less land to find. And if we find one land, it's expensive.
How expensive is something like Condrieu these days to buy a hectare? In
so now Condrieu, it's $1.5 million.
Okay, per hectare, yeah?
By hectare.
Yeah.
Condrieu, it's 1 million euro. Saint Joseph, it's 200,000 euro by hectare. Cornas is 600-700.
You've got to have a big bank account, yeah?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about Syrah as a grape, because we now know that it's got nothing to do with the city of Shiraz in Persia as it was. Its parents were both French, yeah? Dureza, which we'll talk about later because you're growing it, and Mondeuse Blanche. What's it like to work with Syrah as a variety, both in the vineyard and in the cellar?
So now we are happy because we know that Syrah it's come from Northern Rhône because it's wedding between the Mondeuse Blanche and the Dureza. Dureza it's Ardèche variety and the Mondeuse Blanche it's from Savoie. So Northern Rhône it's in the middle. So the Syrah certainly begin in Northern Rhône. Yeah. And I think it's a variety very well adapted to the climate of the Northern Rhône. Now lot of Syrah was planted in Southern Rhône or in Languedoc or in the New World, but sometimes in a too warm place. And Syrah, it's interesting if you can keep a balance, not too much alcohol with a good level of acidity. And in Northern Rhône, the Syrah, it's a good expression of Syrah. It's important to say that the Northern Rhône, we have our varieties. The Syrah come from Northern Rhône, the Viognier come from Northern Rhône, and Marsanne-Roussanne also. So it's variety very well adapted to the Northern Rhône because it's where it's come from.
And over centuries, yeah?
Yes.
Over a long time. How clonally different is it? How many, are there lots of different clones? And tell us a bit about Serine. Everybody says Serine is amazing, yeah? Is Serine, is it a massal selection, Serine?
During the COVID, I bought some old book of ampelography. And I read something interesting about Syrah and Serine. In a book from 1840, it was writing that in Hermitage we have Syrah, and in Côte-Rôtie we have another variety called the Serine. It was writing that in 1840, and after in the end of the 19th century, another book said the first guy make a mistake. Serine and Syrah, it's the same variety. It's a Syrah, but in fact, Serine come from it's a massal selection. The origin is Côte-Rôtie. And the Serine are different from the Syrah we had in Hermitage. And it's for that we begin to plant the Syrah of Hermitage in the northern part of the Northern Rhône, in Côte-Rôtie, and after the 70s. Because the Syrah of Hermitage are more productive, make beautiful grapes, and you can prune it short. And the Serine from the massal selection from Côte-Rôtie, it's the production is not very
regular.
Regular, yes. Yeah. And we have to prune it in a longer pruning. If not, we don't produce enough. So it's for that the Serine disappear for the Syrah of Hermitage. And after, during the 80s and 90s, we have the clone. So now it's mainly planted in clone. So we still have the massal selection of Serine in the vineyard in Côte before the 70s. So if we have a vineyard from the 50s, from the 60s in Côte, it's a Serine.
But nobody's planting it now.
Yes, and so me, I have some old vines, so I preserve this massal selection, and I replant new vineyard with the Serine
with
selection.
Serine. Okay, interesting. Yes. Yeah, I mean, Syrah can be made in lots of styles. You've talked about it, cooler climate, warmer climate. How would you describe your Syrah style?
For me, when I make a wine, I want to have the expression of the terroir, and I want to make a Côte who look like Côte Saint Joseph, and for that, for me, the cru from Northern Rhône have to be wine we can age. So always let's 1% of stem to have enough tannins to have a good aging.
Yeah. How much stems do you leave? 10% or more?
In the average, it's 30%.
30%, okay, of whole bunches.
Average,
yeah.
Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. It's each vintage, each vineyard, it's a little different. I decide at the last minute if I see the stem less or more ripe, and.
So you're using stems, and then what in terms of wood? How much wood are you using? Because I think you're using less new oak now than you were maybe at the start. Is that true?
So my philosophy is to make the vinification of the wine very simple. So it's for that all my wine are making with a natural yeast, and I try to don't use oenologic product. I don't use enzyme, tannins, everything. Very simple, like does my grandfather, and the traditional process. So, traditional process, in Northern Rhône, it's open tank, it's pigeage, pompe-over, maceration in the average of 3 weeks. And after, all my Syrah age in barrels during 18 months. In the past, it was more long. It was more, 2 and sometimes more, years in the barrels.
And you were using more new oak, weren't you, in the past or not?
In the past, they use less, traditionally, they use less new oak. I use more new oak, during the 1920s. And, now, every vintage, I buy, 5% of my, capacity in new oak. But some cuvées, can have 25-30% of new oak.
Yeah.
But, and a lot of the other cuvées don't have new oak. So I put more new oak in the cuvée, making more for aging. And
less in the younger wines.
Yeah.
I'm interested because you travel a lot. You speak extremely good English. That's why you're always popular on panels if you're going to places like South Africa. Which regions outside France and also within France, outside the Rhône, do you think have the most potential to make great Syrah?
So it's what I begin to explain. We have to find a climate appropriate, for the Syrah, a climate to look like a little the Northern Rhône climate. I taste some good Syrah in New Zealand. It's new for them to have Syrah, but, I taste some good balance with Syrah. Some in Switzerland too. I taste some good Syrah. And in the New World, I would say the South Africa also. The climate is it's more fresh. Yes.
Australia a little less, maybe.
Australia, often it's so warm. So the Shiraz we have in Australia often for me are very big, are very totally different of what we do in Northern Rhône. Yes.
I mean, I think Syrah and Shiraz, they're obviously the same grape, but they almost describe different styles, don't you think, of wine? Yeah.
Yes. They take the first Syrah in the 19th century in Northern Rhône, and
I mean, you also work as a consultant, don't you? A little bit in Aix-en-Provence, and you have your joint venture, I think, in California. Where do you work exactly around the world, apart from the Rhône?
So for me, it's very interesting I like to do that, to make a joint venture in California, for example, or to be consultant in Provence, because for me, I see a difference. I see some different way to thinking about. It's totally different of what I do in Northern Rhône, because the soil or the climate are different. So we have to adapt to have reflection to find the balance in the wine, and for me it's very interesting. All this project.
So do you just do those two projects? You do Domaine des Masques in Aix, yeah?
Domaine des Masques in Aix, joint venture in California with Jeff Cohn. And I also have in Luberon at Finesse.
And are you a consultant there, or is that?
Yes, I am a consultant there because they want to plant the Serine, and they took the Serine from my vineyard, and it's for that after he asked me to help them to.
And why did you decide to do a joint venture in California? Because California is in the northern hemisphere, so it's harvesting now, right? Why didn't you do one in the southern hemisphere?
Yes, I agree that it will be more easier to find somebody, a winemaker in south. In one time, I want to go in Chile. It will be more easy like that. I can make 2 harvests by year. No, I go in California because I go often in California, and I met some people, and after we decide together to make wine together. Yes.
So it was more of a friendship with Jeff Cohn that came about, was it?
Yeah, yes, it's for that. Yes, because we go often at an event called Hospice du Rhône, and we met some winemaker passionate by the Rhône variety, and year after year we became friends, and we decided to do something together.
And where are the vineyards?
So the vineyard is located in Sonoma Valley, but in the high altitude in Sonoma. And the vineyard is called Rock Pile.
Rock Pile.
Okay,
Vineyard, I like that.
yes.
That's a lot. I want to talk to you a little bit about climate change, because obviously climate change is happening everywhere. Do you think that the Rhône will still be growing the same great varieties in 50 years' time that it's growing now?
So, for instance, I begin during the 80s. It was before the global warming, and now every winemaker knows it's totally changed. The weather is totally changed, and it affects effectively the result for the wine. But for instance, it's for Northern Rhône, it's a good thing, because before, when I begin, it was difficult to have ripeness every vintage. And we often have to add sugar because we don't have enough maturity. And now it's perfect, because we harvest often at 13 naturally, and it's more easy to have good maturity every year. Before, we have a good maturity every 5 years, and now it's more frequent to have a good maturity. So, for instance, it's a good thing. But what I am afraid is if it's continued to be warmer and warmer, perhaps it can affect.
We hope you won't be growing Grenache in 50 years. We won't be here. So, now, I'm very interested in your new plantings of Durif, which is Petite Syrah,
yes,
and Dureza, which is one of the parents of Syrah, we now know, yeah? Just tell us a bit more about those. Where did you plant them, and why did you plant them? Was that because of climate change?
No. In fact, when I do that, I begin in 2014 to replant this old variety. And at the beginning, it was because when we replant the vineyard of Sessuel, I was very interested by the history, so I find the old book, and it's with this old book I saw that there is an old variety interesting, and so I decided to replant this old variety, but I replant only the variety. It's writing in the old book. It's an interesting variety, and the origin is around the Northern Rhône.
So Durif was there, was it?
Yes. So Durif, it's a variety from Northern Rhône. Dureza also, it's from Ardèche. Chatus is from Ardèche. I plant also. I plant 6-7 different variety, but all from the origin is Northern Rhône, and it's an interesting variety. And at the beginning, I do that to add more complexity, to refine the new. But it's right that all these variety have more acidity than Syrah and less alcohol. But I don't do that for the global warming, but it can be interesting for the global warming.
How interesting. Tell me another thing. I mean, you're making wine in France, obviously. You're making wine in California. Is there anywhere else you'd like to make wine? I mean, I know that they'd love to have you in South Africa if you'd like to go make wine down there. Where else would you like to make wine?
In one time, I said that I want to go to Chile, because for me, Chile, it's a good country for wine, because it's a very long country with the influence of the ocean and the mountain, and you can choose your place with the variety you choose, because and you can certainly find the right place for each variety. So yes, it can be a good place to make wine.
So if any Chileans are listening to the podcast, they should get in contact with you,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about how you get away from wine, because I know you've got a bistro, haven't you, called the Bistro de Serine,
yes,
named after the grape variety, in Ampuy. Is that take up part of your time? I mean, how else do you relax? Do you find time to relax?
Yes. We decided with other friend to have this restaurant in Ampuy, because we want to have a place where we can drink a good wine and not expensive, and with normal food but good food. And yes, we are very happy of that. We don't work. Huh? We only...
You don't work there.
Yes.
So you created the bistro because you wanted to go and eat there and drink wine.
Yes.
And what else do you like doing to get away from wine? Anything? Do you need to?
Oh, I like a lot of things. I used to practice a sport, soccer, tennis. I like to see rugby. Yes, it's the World Cup in France.
Well, I know, and I hope France win. If England don't win, I'd like France to win. Okay, allez les bleus.
Allez les bleus.
Yeah. Allez les bleus. Okay, Yves, thank you so much for sharing your passion and your amazing knowledge of the world of wine, especially the Northern Rhône Valley. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.
Yes, thank you.
Great to catch up with Yves, and I really can't wait to taste the fruits of those new experiments with historic grapes. Next week on Cork Talk, my guest is Greg Lambrecht, the inventor of the Corvin wine preservation system. Join me then. Thanks for listening to Cork Talk. If you want to read more reports, articles and tasting notes by me, go to my website, timatkin.com. You can also follow me on Twitter @timatkin and on Instagram @timatkinmw. See you next week.